GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your host, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of TTRP. It is Superb Owl Day or Super Bowl Sunday. Either way, whatever you want to do. Parents are going to be singing Baby Shark at 5:30, but then they're going to be drinking their 40 and smoking a joint at halftime. So that's how the day is going to be.
But, I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to be that way, baby, for Sheezy.
Yeah. So as they say, the children are going to understand who their parents really are come like 9:30, 10 o'clock. So
I mean, yeah, absolutely on that one.
Yeah. But we're here to talk wrestling. Last week we did a lot of WWE related content because of the Royal Rumble, as well as a sit down interview with Matt Minnick, aka Love Panda 24x48 on TikTok and the other social media channels. Gotten some feedback on that. A lot of people were like, "Yo, we did not know that like a lot of that stuff was like legitimately happening within the wrestling community, and that." And they were giving him props for kind of leading the charge against it. Did you get a chance to listen to the interview?
Unfortunately not, because with my work schedule being what it is, like it's been absolutely crazy. And, you know, I'm going to end up listening to it tonight when I'm relaxing because, you know, that's just kind of dad life / work life lately. Factual,
completely factual. But so I digress. That's where we were last week. This week, we're going to focus a little bit more AEW and a little bit more like non-WWE content. There's going to be some WWE content because we do have the Elimination Chamber coming up. They are building towards it, but we're going to jump into AEW and the fact that CM Punk and MJF have been in this war of words for a few months now, and now MJF has beaten CM Punk twice, apparently. Storyline related, but twice regardless. And it looks like Punk is kind of trying to give MJF the rub to be the next big, like, heel type character in the same light that Punk was when he was doing the Straight Edge Society.
Absolutely. I think coming into AEW when Punk arrived last year, he was doing so, I would like to say, under the premise of, hey, you know, there's a lot of young talent here and I want to work with that young talent. And MJF is undeniable. I mean, you look at his run with Chris Jericho, you look at the run that they had with Inner Circle versus Pinnacle, and those two made magic together. I mean, they were on the 2020 New York Times biggest moments of the year on television doing a singing duet, you know, like a song and dance routine. Like, who would have thought that would occur? And Punk has to know that since his run has begun at AEW, he has lacked that feud, if you will. He's lacked that constant Batman Joker feud that he's needed to kind of solidify his run, and MJF is the perfect foil for that.
Yeah,
and he is delivering on every single promise.
Yeah, and then even within that feud, there's the sub stories, because you have the friendship you have like the partnership that Punk has with Darby Allin and Sting built out of respect, as well as now the partnership that Punk has with Moxley, who was his tag team partner on the last episode of Dynamite, as well as there's been interviews that Punk and Brian Danielson has said that him and Punk would love to tag team together. And like even the internet wrestling community and forums and everything and like have said AEW is building to a point where there's going to be a trios title. There's going to be a trios title because you have so many, because within single competitors and even factions and tag teams, you have multiple members. You have at minimum 3 members because you have Death Triangle. You have Kingston. What it looks like the Inner Circle is going to end up being potentially Jericho, Hager, and Sammy, or potentially because you might see Santana or Ortiz align with Eddie Kingston. You have the members of the Pinnacle. You have Jurassic Express. You have the Elite. You have Adam Cole and Red Dragon. There's so many different storylines where there's so many multiple parts that I fully believe AEW is going to introduce the trios title. And then on the other side of that is you have the story with Wardlow. Wardlow being brought in by MJF as kind of the foil to Jake Hager when they were feuding with the Inner Circle, the big muscle guy, like he's the muscle. But Wardlow has been getting steam. He's people love the Powerbomb symphonies and all that. And people are like just waiting for Wardlow to turn on MJF and the Pinnacle.
And Punk's match with Wardlow, if you go back and you watch that was Punk putting over a big man, like in the means, if I can explain myself, where someone like Wardlow has to be believable that he could go against someone the size of CM Punk and have it not be a one-sided match. And CM Punk was able to draw a lot of emotion out of the crowd because Punk essentially just took like a 30-minute ass whipping when him and Wardlow went at it. Yeah. But at the end of that, Wardlow gets beat barely, like Punk eked out with the victory. But it wasn't like a Shawn Spears CM Punk match.
No. It was the Punk Wardlow match was, for the most part, a copycat of Bret Hart and Diesel.
Yeah, there were definitely some comparisons there. With Punk being a student, so to speak, of old footage and Bret Hart matches, especially.
Yeah, there were throwback moments to that match, and that's the thing. If you haven't noticed, the thing with Punk's run in AEW is he's had matches against Darby Allin, he's had matches against Shawn Spears, Wardlow, MJF. You haven't noticed something about Punk? Punk has worked a different type of style versus different opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's showing his depth in pro wrestling knowledge and psychology because you're facing different type of opponents and you're wrestling the match at completely differently. Every time.
And it's the psychology. One can go back to the King of the Ring tournament, the inaugural King of the Ring matches where Bret Hart went against, he went against Sean Waltman, Bam Bam Bigelow, and if I'm not mistaken, like, wasn't it Mabel? The King, or he beat, like, I'm going to feel like an idiot because there's probably someone listening to this being like, oh my God, this guy blows. But it was 3 distinct different styles that Bret Hart, competed in that night.
So King of the Ring 93, the original.
Yep.
Let me see here. Let me pull up the results. Okay. So And there's the tournament bracket. Okay, so Bret Hart received a bye in the first round. Pinned Razor Ramon.
I was Razor.
10 minutes, 25 seconds in the quarterfinals. Pinned Mr. Perfect at 1856 in the semifinals, and then pinned Bam Bam Bigelow in the finals in 1811.
Okay, so you look at those three different, wrestlers right there. Bret wrestled three different styles because he knew he had to tell three different stories. Now, that was that time in WWE. We kind of know now it's formulaic. You get your 5 moves. Everyone has 5 moves. There's some stuff splashed in between there. And I think Punk probably got on that mindset where it's like, well, this is what I'm going to do until I get to a certain spot where I could do what I want to do. Then that's when you look at, John Cena versus CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011 and some of the matches that he had after that. All of them were drastically different. We were just so used to him doing his 5 big moves that some of the other stuff may have gotten lost in there. If you look at this run that he's had, especially the 40-minute match with MJF, he was doing stuff that I don't think WWE fans even saw.
Yeah,
and I think that's because
the social media, Twitter exploded when he hit the Pepsi plunge off the top rope.
Yeah, and I mean, this is stuff that he's breaking out, so to speak, that has always been there. I mean, more likely on house shows did we see stuff like that. And even then, it was only a small, microcosm of fans who probably were like, oh my God, check it out. So we have to, maybe not look so critically like some have over this initial run, because up until really this feud with, going into the MJF feud, there were a lot of people who are writing CM Punk's return off as like, well, it's already over.
I completely agree with you. And what's funny is, like, staying with AEW, you have so much talent because, and at this point in time, I know Jericho coined the term the Forbidden Door. I don't look at the Forbidden Door how some people look at the Forbidden Door. I look at the Forbidden Door as somebody that's actively competing in another company has crossed over to compete in this company. So, like the examples of the Forbidden Door has like, and you can't. And I know Jericho coined the term, okay? And Jericho's going to go down as one of the top 5 wrestlers of all time, just because of the career he's had, the multiple changes of character dynamics he's had, and everything. But
yeah,
when you have someone that's actively signed elsewhere and they show up on your TV show, that's kind of crossing a forbidden door. You signing a guy that just has his 90-day compete clause end, that's not really the forbidden door. And Tony Khan finally found that out and realized that. And this coming with the debut of Keith Lee. Now, before we get into what we're going to talk about, when he was talking about the Forbidden Door and everything, there were 2 guys that he made the announcement that the person coming in was going to face Isaiah in the first match. Okay. I had 2 names that was thought. I had the name that did debut in Keith Lee. But I had a secondary name, which would have been a bigger impact for the Forbidden Door. And that was Mustafa Ali. Because we've all seen the stories and everything. Mustafa Ali is asked for his release from WWE. WWE is not giving it to him. Is not giving it to him. How big of a thing would have it been that if WWE, in which they've worked deals out before to have the crossover or whatever with companies, most notably Impact, okay? how big would it have been for both companies had Mustafa Ali been the guy, and then had a match with Isaiah instead of Keith Lee?
I think it would have been huge, especially considering we already knew Keith Lee was destined to end up somewhere. I'm not saying he would have walked into AEW, but dude, Impact would have snatched him right up. Now, the thing that kind of boggles my mind is, how did we get to a point where you had such a talented potential and like recognition was starting to happen for Ali, and then now this is a dude who's going to sit on the shelf for 2.5 years going into catering because they just won't say, you know what? Yeah, they'd rather waste this dude's prime and like maybe throw him in there for a squash, maybe at the end of his contract, just to like remind everyone, check this out. You know, this guy's not that good. We just had our guy squash him. But that's one of the things about this whole like new age of wrestling, where now you've got all these other promotions, and now you do have like this term forbidden door where anyone can show up. I'm sure there's some people in management who are like, we can't risk any of our guys making their guys look good.
Well,
or making themselves look better. Yeah. And then us looking like idiots, like, oh, we're going to get rid of this guy, and then he's going to go out and conquer the universe, and we're just going to sit back like, whoa, maybe we should have used him a couple years back.
The prime example of this is the Jeff Hardy situation.
Yep.
Jeff Hardy was at a house show. They acting erratic or whatever. They sent him home. And then people were saying he was on drugs and this, and WWE administered the drug test, and for whatever reason they released him. Okay, they released him from his contract, and then Jeff did the drug test, whatever, and then the story broke that John Laurinaitis contacted Jeff Hardy and was like, "Hey, we'd like to have you come back. We'll give you a spot in the Royal Rumble. We'll also do a 2022 Hall of Fame." And then further reports came out that the drug test came back negative. Jeff Hardy knew it was going to come back negative. And when the offer was given, Jeff Hardy's like, nah. And Jeff Hardy was the one name that WWE did not want to lose, because of the simple fact being, when that 90-day compete clause is up, Jeff can reunite with his brother, and it will reinvigorate the Hardy Boys in AEW with a tag division that is deep.
With a tag division that those boys will be salivating for, because withstanding their feud with the Young Bucks on Ring of Honor and what was it, 6 years ago now?
Yeah.
That was never, quote, nationally seen. Like, Ring of Honor had television, but it wasn't TBS and TNT.
No.
Okay. You throw the Hardy Boys on a promo for AEW, and I guarantee you'll have fans, the casual fan that is always the elusive fan, one of the ones that was part of the 7 million people a week that watched wrestling in the late 90s. You can get one of them to be like, oh, they're going against this team, Jurassic Express. I don't know. Looks weird. Look at the dude in the giant Triceratops mask. I want to watch that. Next thing you know, ratings go up. Recognition happens. And, that's a very bad spot to be in, because everyone talks about, AEW is great at debuting, but they can't capitalize on it. There's nothing better than seeing the Hardy Boys go against any one of the tag teams that are in that roster right now. Oh, whether it be FTR, whether it be the Bucks on a national national stage, whether it be, Dark Order, whether it be Sting and Darby Allin. Oh my God, dude, could you imagine Enigma, Jeff Hardy, and Broken Matt Hardy versus Sting and Darby Allin? I can take my money.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, my mom even said it, not this recent Dynamite, but one Dynamite, there was the Matt Hardy office promo and whatnot, and there was a guy sitting there with his back to the camera, like you couldn't see his arms, you couldn't see his face, he just had a hoodie, and my mom's like, I could have swore that was Jeff Hardy, and I'm like, for all intents and purposes, it could have been. I'm like, because now you look at it, you look at the debut of Keith Lee. Keith Lee comes out and earns the spot for Revolution. And the promo that Matt Hardy cut was like, if you don't win this match, I'm seriously going to have to reconsider some things. What if that's reconsiderment is going, all right, you know what? I'm trying to have these guys do things and trust them. I can't trust them. I need my brother.
Yep.
And then you have the Hardy Boys show up in AEW. You have Santana Ortiz, you have FTR, you have Lucha Express, you have Death Triangle, you have multiple
the Elite.
You have the Elite, you have Red Dragon, like you have the Young Bucks, you have and all these tag teams would be salivating at the moment that they could work a team that has been influential in pro wrestling like the Hardys.
And the other thing is that, okay, I'm going to add on to this, which is there's a lot of critiques of AEW and the way that they do stuff. First off, give them a break. They're a new company, not just a new show. Like from the ground up, they're only 3 years old. Come on, give them a break. Yeah. They're working with the tools that they've got. However, one can argue for all of the people that say that they're just bringing people in and they don't do much with them, and they're not building talent, they're just using talent that's already established. I would like to call on the vast majority of people who don't know who Brody King is, and when he joined Malachi Black, all of a sudden that made them a tag team. And if you don't think that wouldn't be a cool House of Black, you don't think that wouldn't be a cool team? What they're doing is strategic. What they're doing is utilizing the older talent, like we've talked about on other episodes, to elevate these guys so that when it's their time to leave, this company has got established stars that are believable in order to go against anyone that they continue to build and bring up. This is the process, and it's sped up drastically due to, the NXT Performance Center trainees. And of course, you've got AEW has their school, and OVW is still providing talent in their own right. And you're looking at all of this, and you just kind of have to sit back and say, to not sign Jeff Hardy would be insane, because you're building that tag team division. The only division that one could argue does not have that Legends recognition to helping out is the women's division.
Yeah.
But for being the women's division and having relatively young wrestlers in that division, they seem to be doing just fine. Saying.
And that's the thing. But the thing is while the women's division in AEW doesn't have like that legend presence, they have a mix of young and veterans. You have Serena Deeb, you have the Bunny, you have Thunder Rosa, you have Ruby Riott. There's veterans in that locker room for that women's division. The interesting thing with AEW is everybody says, "Oh, it's just them signing. They're signing all the WWE guys." Okay, I'm gonna put this to and you know what? If I get heat for it, I get heat for it. Whatever. If you want to disagree with me, fine. Have a discussion. I'd be cool with it. AEW is not signing all former WWE guys. Is the WWE the last company that these guys have worked for? Yes. But they were well known before WWE. All WWE did was give them national attention and let them make a shit ton of money. That's it. They're not WWE guys. If you want to know, let's see. You know what? If Braun Breaker in 10 years, okay, let's say 10 years, if Braun Breaker has a run where he's won 6 or 7 world championships, WWE, his contract's up, and he decides to leave and he shows up in AEW, fine. You can say they signed a WWE guy because he was developed in WWE. He made his name there. That's what he is. Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Keith Lee, Red Dragon, all these guys that are coming over were guys that were well known way before before they were in the WWE. This context of, oh, they're just signing WWE guys. No, they're not. They're signing guys that that built themselves on independent companies and PWG and ROH and Chikara and so much more. But then they built themselves up so much that WWE is like, hey, these guys are talented. Let's sign them, give them a national exposure, and let them make their money. And they did. And now they're somewhere where pro wrestling matters. Kyle O'Reilly literally had an interview, and one of the last lines he said, "Pro wrestling, sports entertainment, it's all the same thing. It's just how a company views it."
Well, I think that's the first time I've ever had Pat G mad on the podcast.
There's been other times.
That was a very bold and impassioned speech, because you're absolutely right. Like, far be it from me to bring up the greatness of fast food chains, but I believe Little Debbie Snack Cakes recently was tweeted. Follow me on this one. This is going to be an interesting journey, ladies and gentlemen. Little Debbie Snack Cakes was tweeted a question about whether they preferred DC or Marvel. And Little Debbie's actually responded by saying, if you look at it from just a cinematic view, Marvel has done more. They've created this entire universe, and DC lacks in that. However, DC does have their own properties, and their animation is far superior, which made me laugh, because it's kind of what comic book nerds think anyway. But then they followed it up with, why does everything have to be a this or that? Why does it have to be you either have to love this or hate that, or hate this and love that in order to validate something? Can't we all just like different stuff and have it be like, you like that? Cool. I like that. Awesome. And agree? And I sat there, I'm like, well, Little Debbie Snack Cakes just fixed the Middle East war crisis right there. I mean, if we just listened to Little Debbie Snack Cakes, this entire world would be better. But also, like, that's the weirdness of fans. Like, they look to pick out any little thing that they can. And if someone happened to work for WWE for the last few years, great. Chances are when they have to show back up on the independents, it's going to be formerly known as, but they're going by their previous name before WWE threw a character on them. Adam Cole is Adam Cole everywhere. Samoa Joe is Samoa Joe everywhere. AJ Styles is a prime example of someone that WWE did not make. Okay. Impact Wrestling made him.
Yeah.
He's continuing to elevate their product.
Yeah. And this is the thing.
People would still bitch when he leaves.
Say AJ Styles' contract ends. The current contract he has runs out. It's been well said that AJ Styles has said when his current contract is up, he's done. He's done.
Yeah.
Because he wants to not be around for his kids and everything and whatnot. Okay, so AJ Styles, his contract runs out. He leaves. Okay, let's say AJ Styles shows up in AEW like on a one-off, just a one-off or whatever.
Right. I'm following you.
Okay. What are you gonna say? Oh, AEW signed WWE for WWE star AJ Styles. No, AJ Styles was a star long before WWE. WWE gave him the full national exposure that he wasn't getting in TNA Impact.
That is true. And
okay.
I mean,
if John Cena shows up on All Elite Wrestling Television or Impact or something, then you can say they signed a WWE star.
Or Randy Orton, but yeah. Randy Orton has long said, he's got about 10 more years left in him. Who knows who knows if he would show up in AEW? That's like neither here nor there. But the one thing that gets me is it's like, I think people in this day and age of like snap judgments and snap assumptions, they want to be the first one to have a tweet that goes out that gets retweeted by somebody. It's like, oh, I said something that was awesome. It's all a matter of
what can I put out content wise that will make me go viral.
I saw a wrestling forum, and this was funny. Like, it was the tweet by Tony Khan that Keith Lee is all elite.
Yep.
Underneath it, where there is a silver lining, there's always a cave troll just smelling like body odor, trying to throw his anger at it. And it was basically, oh, so Mr. Diversity, are you going to give him the big belt? And are you going to bring in his missus? And basically he like kind of underhandedly slandered Keith Lee's wife, and he like recent wife, like last weekend recent. And you just kind of sit there and you're like, dude, Keith Lee just left a situation that wasn't creatively good, showed up as himself, Limitless Keith Lee, the one that, has been knocking people over guardrails for years now.
Yep.
And you're trying to throw shade on Tony Khan. Why? Because you wanted this exact moment. You wanted podcasters to talk about your stupid ass. Yep. And you wanted wrestling forums to take a screenshot so that they would share it so that people would know your name. It's like, dude, Keith Lee just showed up. And you want to know the meme that is running through my mind? Where he is throwing Isaiah and someone wrote Jazz and Uncle Phil on the picture.
Yep.
I'm done. The internet has won for today.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the interesting thing with the Keith Lee debut is the fallout after the fact. And I have to respect Tony Khan for taking responsibility for his screw up. Because people were like, well, it's not really a forbidden door because Keith Lee was a free agent, so on and so forth. Which then and Tony Khan admitted that he mistakenly used the terminology wrong, hence why he worked the deal, which literally got agreed upon the Sunday before, so last week Sunday, for Jay White to show up on Dynamite and Rampage.
And let's be honest, that was something no one expected to see.
Oh, not at all.
Because all of the attention currently so this leads to a lot more stuff, right?
Yep.
Because no one expected Jay White to show up because he's been working on Impact with the Bullet Club, Tamatanga, the Bullet Club. And all of a sudden he's showing up on All Elite Wrestling working with the Super Click. So like you look at what is transpiring and it's the inevitable Bullet Club versus Elite match in AEW. Like these little seeds that they keep dropping are working perfectly. And if this was because of a verbal miscue by Tony Khan on a word that one of his top guys created and he ran with and is now wrestling lingo, do you realize that two dudes in a brand new wrestling company created a term because one of them wanted to go over to Japan and work a match?
Yep.
That like one phrase in a promo has changed the lexicon of professional wrestling language. Like it has broken through, like SmackDown. Okay. Everyone knows what SmackDown came from. It came from The Rock. They attribute that to him.
Yep.
Forbidden Door is now a term that wrestling fans know. You know what I mean? Like, and even not wrestling fans, like sportscasters in major, sports are talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like the term Forbidden Door is being thrown out there and, take advantage. And Pat G and I always tell people, find the positive and stuff when it comes to being a wrestling fan. Dude, we have another cool thing that's probably going to be in Webster's dictionary in a couple of years if it keeps getting said.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is we have said it multiple times. It is a wonderful time to be a wrestling fan right now because you look at Jay White and the Gorillas of Destiny and everything on Impact Wrestling. They're kind of they're feuding with the Good Brothers, who Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, former members of the Bullet Club. Okay. Now, all of a sudden on AEW, Jay White shows up and lays the seeds down that he's not there by himself, but he's looking to potentially align himself with Cole and the Young Bucks. Because as Cole said in the little promo, when you're Bullet Club for life. And this is the thing. And then people were like, well, Jay White and Kenny Omega have always been adversaries. Correct. What happens if this is a grand master plan by Adam Cole to potentially overtake the Elite? And because now he's got his boys Red Dragon. Now he has like an assassin type in Jay White. And then by God, the internet would break if God shows up on AEW television.
Yeah, if they show up on AEW television, because, all right, Tama Tonga is a great troll. All right, Tama Tonga has been trolling fans for a while because he'll just throw something out fantastic. There. He is one of those guys, much like Samoa Joe, who just writes one phrase and you're just like, oh, it's happening. Oh, something is majorly happening.
Yep.
You know, what country are you in? What? You know, like Samoa Joe is going to show up right now? Holy crap. But Tama Tonga is just as good. And all it would take is one tweet from him being like, wow, that's interesting.
Yep.
And you have yourselves the making. And Revolution is right around the way. And that's something that we have to take into consideration is like, is this going to be a Kenny Omega-less Revolution?
Yeah.
And if it's potentially looking that way, you need to do something big with the Elite.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just, it's essentially like you can, and I know that AEW said, well, their working relationship with Impact has kind of come to an end and everything, which is fine. But there's not anything says that they couldn't work with them again.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, not there's no deal. That doesn't mean there's no deal on that's potential. That just means, hey, right now, we ain't working with them. We ain't got any.
It's like right now we don't have anything creatively that we could work together on and do. And what was it? You know what? So I know Revolution's coming up March 6th. When has been the Stadium Brawl?
I think that's actually around this time. Now that I think about it, because last year's Revolution, I believe, was ended.
All right, so Double or Nothing
Circle versus the Pinnacle.
Let me see. That was okay. So that didn't have. Okay, that just had the Casino Battle Royale that Adam Page won. Okay, Fyter Fest 2019. Let me see. What was it? 20. All Out. I think. Yeah, I'm like, okay, that's the tag. Okay, that was the elimination singles match. That was Jericho MJF. So it was before that. So Double or Nothing. Yeah, I think Double or Nothing.
Double or Nothing 2020.
Yeah.
Because Matt Hardy. Remember Matt Hardy?
Yeah. Okay. So Stadium Stampede match. Yeah, the Inner Circle defeated the Pinnacle. Okay, so Double or Nothing is. So I think Double or Nothing is the one with the Stadium Stampede. Yeah, because 2019 was the one with Matt Hardy showing up.
Yep.
Okay,
I mean,
so Double or Nothing.
Let's look at it.
Okay,
from that.
So right now you have Revolution. So Revolution's March 6th. Double or Nothing is May 29th. So
yeah, so that's a good amount of time to tell this story, to make it matter.
Imagine a stadium stampede match featuring the explosion of the Bullet Club. Hey, y'all, we are going to take a short break from the show real quick just to pay some bills. Please do us a favor. If you like what you hear, like what you see, please drop a subscription or follow to gearnetwork.com, as well as the TTRP, Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. That way you get notified when we have new episodes go up via your podcast services. Thank you. And now back to the show. And you have all former members: Adam Cole, Jay White, God, the Good Brothers, the Elite. Like, imagine that.
That would be, I mean, WWE has never been able to capitalize on the popularity of the Bullet Club.
Nope.
Like, because of Vince's inability to want to acknowledge other things, he's kind of like, the commentators have mentioned it, just because you can't ignore the history.
You can't ignore, yeah, you can't ignore certain things, but there's been the common thing of, if Vince didn't create it, he will eat, and if he didn't create it, he will never use it. And if he does use it and it was never created by him, he will find a way to destroy it and make it less significant.
NWO. You're right. And the thing we have to look at with this is, they being AEW, have the ability of bringing in these talents and having it matter. I mean, Kenta showed up, Kenta's Bullet Club.
Yep.
And
oh my God.
Yeah. I just reminded you of that, didn't I?
I forgot about Kenta.
Yeah, every once in a while, Dan remembers something smart. So, and
I forgot Kenta showed up.
And with travel being less, loosened up, internationally, we have the opportunity to have more members show up. And I think that this would be something that they being AEW could redo something like a Bullet Club implosion better than TNA was able to do an ECW reunion like they tried in 2011.
I believe so.
Yeah, it was 2011, because it's not like all of the property is held by WWE. They can say Bullet Club all day. They've had T-shirts appear by Kenny Omega in promos.
Because the thing is you got to remember, it's Kenny Omega, it's Don Callis, it's Chris Jericho, like that. Like, there's and this is the thing, is you could build this as a conglomerate between three companies: Impact, AEW, and New Japan Pro Wrestling.
And a lot of people seem to forget, like, this has happened with other promotions in the past. Now, mind you, when promotions would all try and run like super shows, it might not, come off as well. But this isn't running super shows. This is loaning people out in order to create stories. This isn't like
this. This isn't the same. This isn't the same as the AWA and Mid-South and Memphis trying to come together to run a giant pay-per-view, and then them like, well, I want my champion over, we want our champion over, so on and so forth. This is three companies going, at the end of the day, this is good business because it's going to put eyes on all of our stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and all in the middle of this is, during this time frame, you have Bullet Club working with like Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero, and that's giving Rocky national exposure in the United States. I mean, he's a huge star, obviously, in Japan, but like, your average person wouldn't have known who he was until he showed up on Dynamite. Yep. And I mean, Trent Beretta just coming back off of injury with a hot story against the Elite, adding layers to this. Yep. And he was the one that was targeted by Jay White. So it's like, oh, this big star is showing up and he's attacking this guy. So this brings more into the feud with like the best friends and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So like it's this ever constant changing.
And then it also, like, even if you don't build towards like a Bullet Club implosion, you're still building towards something, because you have Adam Cole and Red Dragon. Now you have Jay White in the mix with the best friends, who apparently have recruited Danhausen as well.
I'm glad that on a regular basis we get to mention Danhausen. I've been waiting for this day for a very long time.
And then
he's very nice, very elite, very evil.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just, AEW is doing so much to bring attention to pro wrestling. Like, I gotta give them respect for it. And yes, people give AEW flack and everything, but you know what? Cody Rhodes has not done the one thing he said, that he has kept his word on the one thing he promised, that he'll never hold the world championship to this point.
Yep.
Has he challenged for it? Yes. Has he won it? No.
Nope. And that's
the Young Bucks literally held the tag team division, the tag team titles, because at the time when they won them, it was a intermediate feud between the Elite.
Yep. With
Omega and Page. So, and then they held them for a while. They built up other tag teams, and then they finally dropped into a very good. They dropped them to the Lucha Brothers.
Mm-hmm. In a story that told sense, that made sense. And this right now, I mean, there are T-shirts with the pillars of AEW, and the pillars from AEW that are AEW are not the Elite.
No, It is Darby, it is Sammy, it is MJF, it is Britt Baker.
Yep. Those are the four faces we're going with. It
is four people. The pillars of AEW are four people that are literally under the age of 30.
And insanely popular, gaining that experience. One could argue, and I'm sure I'll take heat for this too, whatever, I don't care. It's Superb Owl Sunday. I'm waiting for my Superb Owl to drop knowledge for me. But here's what I'm going to say. Britt Baker, although her time in the wrestling business is not like as tenured as some others, you have got to give that girl credit. She is fire. And the best part about her is that you can't say you're the best and not have like kind of the trophies to prove it. And she's definitely got the trophies and the plaques to prove it. And the fact that like she's holding up a women's division, as we discussed a few minutes ago, with a not as veteran as you would expect roster.
Nope.
And they have, with arguably, the better development of female talent, because Jade isn't long in the business, but she's your TBS champion for a reason.
Yeah. And what's funny with Jade Cargill is I saw a report the other day that WWE is interested in her. They were interested in her at one point, that they didn't sign her because of her lack of experience and everything. You know what? Jade Cargill has the it factor. She may not be that great. She may not be the greatest in the ring, but you know what? Neither was Trish Stratus. Neither was Lita. Neither was Michelle McCool. Neither was Molly Holly. Like a lot. This is the thing, is you have all these people that had Hall of Fame careers, and people don't overlook the fact that none of these people had the greatest year or two, first 2 years in the company, in their career. Trish Stratus wasn't a full-time wrestler for the first year and a half, 2 years of her career. She was a manager. She was a valet.
Yeah, her biggest thing up to the beginning of 2002 was the Mr. McMahon angle leading into his match against Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 17.
Yep.
The next year, she was in the women's match in Toronto. You know what I mean? You never know what is going to be the spark that makes someone good. And everyone likes to look through the history of this sport with rose-colored eyes and try and be like, oh, well, this person is garbage because they're... Dude, bro, John Cena started wrestling in what? 99? 2000?
Okay. Something around that.
I think 2000, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, 5 years later, he's the champion at WrestleMania. Randy Orton started wrestling, training to be a wrestler in what?
So John Cena began training to become a professional wrestler in 1999 at Ultimate Pro Wrestling's California-based Ultimate University, operated by Rick Bassman.
Okay, so let's take that time.
Early appearances on WWE, build at the Prototype, dark match, signing in 2001. He signed, which was then his time in OVW.
Okay.
He got called up to the main roster in 2002 alongside Lesnar, Orton, and Batista, which would essentially become known as the OVW4. And then he had the Dr. Thugonomics 02 to 04. The US
04 was when he won his first major title, which was the US
champion, was the US championship. And then
4 years into pro wrestling.
And then
4 years into pro wrestling.
Cena defeated JBL at WrestleMania to give him the WWE championship, his first ever title.
So 6 years into wrestling, he's got the main title.
Yep.
4 years into wrestling, he's got, or barely 4 years into wrestling, he's got the United States title. And he was United States champion a couple times, 2-3 times, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's put time in the business aside. When they strap the rocket ship to you, and it doesn't matter what company it is, your ass is going over. Goldberg showed up in September of 1997 and was champion by July.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. If you have the right pieces around them, you can make it work. Ruby Riott is Ruby Soho is one of the best women wrestlers of that generation that got somehow overlooked in WWE. I don't know how.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, but she's got a look. The eye is attracted to her. She's got that it factor. They just didn't go with. Regardless, she shows up in AEW, and what does she do? She does what everyone's supposed to do. You put the person over because the chase is what makes it so much fun as a fan. And I mean, Jade goes out there and the eye goes to her. She's got a goddess physique. She is, undeniable in the it factor. When you look at her, she's not built like any of the other women on the roster. And then she's just able to pull out the moves that make you interested in continuing to watch her. And her match with Ruby Soho was a damn good match, bro. Good match.
Ruby Soho made her work for that title.
Oh, yes, she did. And she followed every step of the way. Her dance partner was the perfect person to put her over.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing is there's with AEW, it's and I think back to the Kyle O'Reilly comments. AEW is a pro wrestling company that has aspects of sports entertainment.
Yes.
WWE is a sports entertainment company that has aspects of pro wrestling.
Yes.
Impact is a mix between both. Okay. I believe Impact's kind of if you look at it, pro wrestling and sports entertainment, as Kyle O'Reilly said, they're the same thing. They are the same thing. It's just which one would you lean toward more? I think AEW has a 70-30 split. That would be, I believe that's WWE's has a 70-30 split, but it's the other way. And then Impact's kind of like a 50-50, 60-40 ish.
Depending on the lead up to whatever event. Yes.
Yeah. Like it depends on what event they're coming up to and everything. But it's the thing of pro wrestling. It's like there's so much more available now to people that are pro wrestlers that in the last 2 years, and I'm going to say this, the pandemic changed a lot of things. Okay.
Yes, it did.
From the way independent wrestling is run to various companies and everything. Because for the most part, you no longer have your small, low, rural type independent wrestling companies, or what was termed shindy. Like for the there's still some that exist, not gonna lie, but for the most part, the pandemic ended that.
Yes.
You don't 3 years ago, one of the big, within pro wrestlers, one of the biggest thing was what was it? Trashbag Wrestling. Yeah. Trashbagwrestling.com.
Yes.
And they would show all the video highlights and clips of stuff and everything from shows like that. Yes. You don't see that stuff nowadays.
I mean, you see botch spots. That's what you'll see now. You'll see bad botches, but even then, that can be chalked up to bad spot.
Yeah,
here's the other thing, and I can speak from experience with recent events in my life, dude. A lot of these people that represent some of these companies are going out, they're scouting at these independent shows because they themselves realize the business needs to keep growing, and just like always, they're going to these shows, but they're not going to report back and say, hey, this person definitely needs to get seen on AEW Dark or get a tryout, unless they actually deserve to get a tryout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the one good part about what, like you said, what the pandemic did is it wiped out some of these shindy promotions that couldn't afford this. And now, you had Richard Holiday appearing on a show, MLW star champion, and he's working with a guy who was doing AEW Dark, and they're tearing it up. Moose recently did a stint in the northeastern New York, where he visited several promotions and worked with a lot of the top talent. And you know what? Those guys are going to get calls, because when you're having the Impact World Champion show up at your Fed representing his company and you have a shot at his title, that makes it even bigger. That makes your promotion one that people want to see. And trust me, the numbers don't lie. When there's a fanny every 18 inches, the next show, there's more in there, and you're running out of chairs and you're running out of bleacher room. Congratulations, you did the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of these guys are starting to understand.
Yeah. It's not so much more of, hey, I'm doing this because no one else will give me a chance in their company, so I'll do my own company, or whatever, or the terminology of, well, you're not letting me play on your basketball court, so I'm going to go build my own. This is the thing is you now have WWE, you have AEW, you have Impact, you have NWA, you have GCW, you have your lower tier independents, MLW, you have MLW, you have, and then you're higher end independents like ESW and PWG and stuff like that. And then you have the levels under that. There's levels to pro wrestling. It's just a matter of the work the amount of work that you're willing to put in. And perfect example, and I know I brought is Daniel Garcia. Like Garcia, like spent so many years on the independent, and he's now got to a point where he just won Bola 2022, and now he's focusing on his national aspects with New Japan and AEW. But but it doesn't mean that he's not gonna show up at an independent show for a company that he's worked at previously to help build someone else up.
And especially considering that, like, when he showed up to AEW, you know, everyone in the Northeast already knew who this kid was. He goes out there, has one match, and it's like, yeah, he's ours now. We're going to keep him around. And he's working with the likes of CM Punk.
Yep.
And he's getting all these opportunities within. And once again, another person who would benefit from a trios title in AEW, you know, Daniel Garcia.
Yeah.
And
even though he could, to be fair, and this is kind of a personal just like thing, I'd rather see him aligned with Butcher and the Blade than Ever Rise. But
yeah, I mean, we can't pick and choose who we want them to book.
Yeah,
or how they want them to book.
We can't armchair book shit here. So, but yeah, no, it's the thing of, in the 3 years that AEW has existed, I feel like AEW has done so much for professional wrestling. It's helped its growth. It's just on the flip side of this, you now have WWE, where for the most part, the only big thing that they've done is Roman Reigns embracing the head of the table character.
I mean, I have to agree with you on that one, because this is the problem where they've like kind of gotten to a certain spot where, unlike AEW, the new stars that they have developed, they aren't lasting.
Nope.
And they're bringing them up, they're changing them completely from the formula that you knew them as, and then they're releasing them, and then they're showing up on AEW, and we get to hear people complain that they're showing up on AEW.
Yeah, absolutely. So with WWE, of course, the Elimination Chamber is coming up.
Yep.
For one, why the Elimination Chamber is in Saudi Arabia, I have no goddamn clue, other than money. Secondly, what you have to understand is people are bitching and complaining about Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. We've been here before. We've done this before. Okay, well, let me put it to you this way. Brock Lesnar can't face Roman Reigns because Brock Lesnar is about to capture the WWE champion, capture the title, okay? End of story. Whatever. All right. The reason that Goldberg is facing Roman Reigns is because the Prince of Saudi Arabia, who gave WWE all this money, goes, hey, I want the stars from the past that are still alive, that are the big draws. Goldberg is one of them. Ronda Rousey is the second. Brock Lesnar's the third. It's not so much, and like I said, the card's not great. The card is not great at all right now. Okay. Your planned card, which is 7 matches, is Lashley defending the WWE Championship versus Lesnar, Rollins, Austin Theory, Riddle, and AJ Styles. Becky Lynch is facing Lita, the Usos versus the Viking Raiders for the tag team titles. Reigns versus Goldberg, McIntyre versus Madcap Moss, Falls Count Anywhere. Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Doudrop, Nikki Ash, and to be announced for Raw Women's Championship match, which makes no sense because you have Lita facing Becky Lynch. Okay, cool. And then, of course, the match they just added, Ronda Rousey and Naomi versus Charlotte for Unsigned Deville, combining essentially two storylines, which make no goddamn sense whatsoever. But on the flip side, there's a hell of a lot of women on this card.
I think that the reason that match is going to work is because you're going to need to hide the fact that Ronda Rousey only gave birth 4 months ago. You can be a badass woman all you want. You still just gave birth to a human.
Yeah.
And postpartum is real. And there was a thing that popped up on my news feed the other day, not my Facebook news feed, my actual news feed, where Ronda Rousey had done an interview and she said that lactating during matches is a real concern for her.
Oh, yeah. And
you sit there and you're like, that sentence just got said out loud.
Yep.
Because Becky Lynch took almost a full year. She took 18 months off, but it was almost a full year after the birth before she showed back up. And of course, by the time she showed back up, she was in immaculate shape. And, we've had some great matches since. Yeah,
so
Ronda Rousey
Becky
is
Lynch,
in a different boat.
Let me see. Becky Lynch took a 15-month hiatus. Let's see. The May 11th episode of Raw, and that was 2021. Yeah. So 2020.
2020.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Asuka. Okay. So Survivor Series, Charlotte rivalry, tag team titles, TLC, feuded with Asuka, which directed the match for Raw Women's Championship, Royal Rumble. Lynch retained. February, she feuded with Baszler. WrestleMania 36 is
the last time
Baszler bench match. And then April 4th, Lynch defeated Baszler to retain her title suppressing the 1 year. Following the event, Lynch ceased participating in physical confrontations, relying on promos to advance her storylines. May 11th, as she announced relinquishing the title due to her pregnancy. And that previous night's winner, Money in the Bank, that's when Asuka. So, yeah. So, August, so May 2020 to August 2021. So 15-month hiatus.
Okay. Ronda Rousey only just gave birth 4 months ago. So she's going to need that razzle dazzle, adding flair, hoo-ha around here. Yeah. My biggest concern is if what was on SmackDown the other night is any indication of what I can expect from their match at WrestleMania, I am already checked out because they are just shoehorning in having those two women as the main event on night one. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
They're just shoehorning it in order to make it be like, okay, we need two big names. So we got what is inevitably going to be the winner take all match between Brock and Roman on night 2.
Yep.
And now we have our women's title match, which all they need to say is Becky Lynch is going to be on night 2.
Oh yeah. Becky Lynch is going to be night 2
that way she can
honestly,
avoid being the undercard.
And you know what? The to be determined spot, it's either going to be one of two people. It's going to be Sasha or it's going to be Bayley.
Yeah.
It's one of them two, because essentially it's for the Raw Women's Championship match at WrestleMania. To be fair, the only two that are in the match right now currently that could hold that spot would be Ripley or Bianca.
And they've kind of sailed the ship on Ripley, and Bianca after losing to Doudrop so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the pushes that Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair had at one point, they're not there anymore. They're popular hands, but WWE, I think, is starting to fall back to what they did a couple of years ago and relying on the 4 horsewomen.
Yeah.
Becky and Charlotte being the front runners, Sasha being the working hand, and then Bailey bringing up the rear because honestly Bailey has done an amazing job with her character.
Yeah, and I mean that's that's been the truth. I mean, you have to look. All of these women have changed their character. It's evolved over time.
Yep.
The boss, the queen, the man, and the Karen.
Yeah.
I mean,
essentially.
they have done phenomenal jobs making these characters endearing, and fans are okay with it. Fans love seeing them in it, and not only that, but let me just be blunt. They deliver. They would not be in those positions if they didn't deliver, if they didn't go out there and have consistently great matches all the time. If they just went out there and had boo-boo crap matches and no one gave a rat's patootie about it, then they would find someone else to fill their spots. But Ronda Rousey is a draw. Okay. Yep. Ronda versus Charlotte. Charlotte is a draw. You know what you're going to get out of Charlotte. Whether that's going to be what we get based, like I said, on what happened the other night, or was that a miscue? Like, am I looking too much into this?
I don't think it was a miscue. I think because right now Mania's not till April 2nd and 3rd. So we're still just under 2 months away. Let me see. So
with this being the only pay-per-view leading up to WrestleMania, there's not one in March.
Yeah.
March is all build.
Yeah, there isn't let me see. So let me see. Elimination Chamber. Yeah. So there's not a Prime Wrestling event again until Mania, which at this point will give Ronda Rousey time to not get physical. She can rehab, she can recover and all that, like from the birth and that. Let me see. When did she gave birth in September? Yeah.
God, good God.
I believe she gave birth in September. So, it was, let's see, the news dropped October 6th. That's when September 27th. Okay. So she, at the time of Mania, she'll be just under 6 months from giving birth. I think if Ronda only shows up and cuts promos, which her promo skills aren't bad, not gonna lie, they're not terrible.
No, I think this also gave her time to be introspective on her views of professional wrestling, because also let's take into consideration the fear a lot of folks had with her coming back was she didn't do a very good job of making fans like her. Like people seem to forget. Joan Jett thought she was getting booed at WrestleMania. No, Joan, you were not getting booed. You were playing the theme song to the woman that they were booing because of things that she had said.
Yeah, exactly. No, they were not booing Joan Jett. You were playing the theme song to the woman that they were booing.
That no one wanted to see.
No one wanted to see and all that. But the thing is someone that had, as we wrap up here, someone that has been a draw, Matt Cardona.
What you mean? NWA champion, GCW champion, Impact champion. You mean that Matt Cardona? The best of luck on your future endeavors.
Yep. Like the fact that, and what's funny is it was just announced on Twitter. It was announced on Twitter a couple hours ago that Matt Cardona is going to defend the NWA Heavyweight Championship against Nick Aldis at the Crockett Cup.
Ooh.
At the fair, March 19th and 20th at the fairgrounds in Nashville, Tennessee.
Ooh. I mean,
to be honest, to be completely honest, if I was in a position to make that trip and get tickets for it, I freaking would, because that match is going to be legit.
That match is going to be straight fire, because let's be honest, Nick Aldis has held that belt in the minds of the wrestling fans for the last, like 5 years now?
Yeah.
Like the 10 pounds of gold has been a thing because of Nick Aldis.
Yep. Let's see. So National NWA Wrestling Alliance, Aldis made his debut 2017, defeating Will Rude, challenged Tim Storr for the championship. That took place November 12th. Saw Storm retain. December 9th, Aldis defeated Storm in a rematch. So he held it from December 9th, 2017 up until August 29th, 2021, when he lost to Trevor Murdoch in a title versus career match. So outside of like the month or so he lost it to Cody,
yeah,
he's pretty much held the belt for 4 years.
Yeah, trying to build this company up, and now Matt Cardona is coming out hot because his work has been phenomenal, and his reinvention of his character is even better. In the fact that he said the Fed was my developmental.
Yep. So Nick Aldis
branding.
Nick Aldis held his first reign, started December 9th, 2017, and ended September 1st, 2018. So he held it for 266 days. And then his second run, after defeating Cody at the 70th anniversary show, October 21st of 2018, he held it for 1,043 days up until August 29th of 2021, which was the NWA 73rd anniversary show, losing to Trevor Murdoch. And then Murdoch had it for 167 up until yesterday when Matt Cardona defeated him.
And once again, Matt Cardona has just been adding to this like post WWE future endeavors resume of his.
Yep.
And I mean,
GCW,
he's undeniable.
Impact, now NWA. Like Matt Cardona is everywhere without being everywhere.
And not only is he everywhere without being everywhere, as you put it, man, he's developing a household name, and he does not have to be signed to the E.
Nope. He doesn't.
And that is something.
Doesn't need to be signed by a major company.
Nope. I mean, he brief stop in AEW, but that was it.
And the fact that he's got this heel persona that's so good. I know when we did the collabro with the Marksman, and I brought his name up for the Royal Rumble, and it kind of got chatted on a little bit. Like,
sorry, Pat G.
No, I'm not mad at it. But you look like I said, he doesn't have the same path as like what Drew McIntyre did, but he's still got a path.
Yeah.
It's just everybody's path is different. And he's taking the path of he knows where the wrestling business is, and he knows how to exploit it.
And he's not just exploiting it, as you put it. He's taking advantage of the time that it takes to build stories. He's going wherever he wants, and he's doing whatever he wants to do.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's what you need to do in pro wrestling. So, but of course, Matt Cardona coming up this Saturday. I believe he's in a rematch with Jordan Grace for the Digital Media Championship in Impact. So that's going to be a good match. Of course, lots of AEW stuff, lots of WWE stuff. But for Dan, this has been Pat G. This has been the GTRP. We are signing out. So, as you know, be safe, be kind, be healthy, and we will see you on the flip side. Thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast today. We appreciate and thank you for your continued listenership. If you'd like what you hear, please follow us or subscribe to the podcast via gearnetwork.com/TTRP, where you can access the show via Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast services where your podcast can be found. Please follow us as well on social media at facebook.com/Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast and on Twitter at TBTR Podcast. We also ask you to please hit the subscribe button so you get the notification when the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at 6:05 Eastern Standard Time.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.